Hi all. Today we're going to take a SST apart and show you what we look for and just part of the process of what we do here on Teardown. This customer is a pretty typical customer for these. He just wants a OEM rebuild to repair all of the issues it has, and they also want an upgraded damper. So we're just going to show the teardown procedure here and go from there. A lot of bolts, but work on these every day, so I know where they all go, so we just try to zip them off as quickly as I can and toss them in that basket there so we can run them through the wash and get them all cleaned up. That doesn't look good. I had a couple of different sizes for these over the years, so looks like this took a slightly smaller version. So this customer opted to send us the unit without the line filter housing on it. Since the unit is plastic, so you can see with this one here, Since it is plastic, they tend to break easily in shipping. So if you remove these, we will still include the line filter and the gasket that goes to this when we ship the unit back in a separate bag. So when you put your housing back on, you have all the correct pieces to assure everything is done right. Well, we'll move this over here. Some of this stuff is kind of hard to do with a camera on my forehead, so bear with me here. Now this plug right here for the valve body, these are known to blow out. They have a groove in them that's pretty fragile and it'll break and blow out. We have a billet version for that to repair that issue, but this one's actually looking like it's in pretty good shape. Set that aside. You may not be able to see it on the camera, but this filter on the top here, you can see where some debris has settled on there. It's a mixture of clutch material and metal from just typical wear in these units. So that's pretty common, but you can see this unit probably didn't have the oil change as often as it should have. So now we're going to move these guys. So a trick to get this cover off without bending it, I've seen people try to pull them off here and you'll bend the cover and ruin it. This build that this customer wants comes with a new cover anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. But I'll just show you a trick on getting these off without damaging them. What you want to do is take a pry bar right here and run it as close to the edge of the cover as possible because that's the strongest point. So you want to do it right where it's got the most support, just like that. That way, if you need to put this back on, it's perfect. You didn't damage anything in the process. Set that there. Now there is a tool that you can either make or get from Mitsubishi where you can stick in here and just spin the whole clutch assembly off, but I'd like to look at it while I take it apart.
Sorry, I have a quick question. That one for that warrant guy that said that it'd be better if we just took his clutch in and like pressure test it here.
Yeah.
Is that like are we doing like a specific plate on it? Like I know you said to just charge parts.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to look at it to see what's wrong with it, but
So it's mainly just kind of like an inspect and then bill upon.
yeah, I would.
And no labor.
Sure. Yeah, if you want to send me a copy email too, I could probably fill in some blanks as well.
Okay.
So,
Sure.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. So if this gets a little sticky, trying to get this clip out, you can pry right here to compress the damper, and then you can just pull this up and out. Here. Oh, there you go. There you go. This piece, if you're gentle and pull it straight out, it'll come out without issue. So that's the damper. There's a set of springs in here that absorb the harmonics from the engine so it doesn't get into the delicate components in the trans. And unfortunately, those springs inside this unit will break. You might be able to get a peek at them. I don't know if you can see them in there, but what we do is cut these open, replace the springs to make it more reliable. So the problem with them, the springs breaking, is you'll have spring material that'll get out and get caught in either the oil pump drive gear or sometimes the trash magnets will get a hold of them, but they tend to move around a bit in the trans before that happens, and it can cause damage to various pieces in the unit. This is the clutch assembly. Oh, would you look at that? That right there is a piece of a spring from that damper. So I don't know if you can see it, but that's part of the coil from the spring. So what typically happens is, as the clutch is in rotation, it'll pick this piece up and it'll move around, and this is the oil pump drive gear, and this piece will get caught between the clutch drive gear here, the oil pump drive gear on the clutch housing, and the drive gear here. And when it gets caught in between, it'll chip and damage the teeth on the oil pump drive gear. So, if you ever hear us talk about, something like you need a new oil pump drive gear due to damage from a damper spring, that's typically what happens. So, generally what I'll do is when I have this all torn apart, I'll check the gear teeth here, because sometimes pieces of the coil from the spring will get jammed in here, and it'll chew up the gear teeth as well. So we just want to make sure that that's healthy. But, this is the clutch assembly. What I'll typically do, just to get an idea on wear before I take it apart, is I'll pressure test it. So I'll take it over here. And we're checking for leaks. The side seal's pretty good. That also seems pretty good as well. But I'll also check for clearance. So we'll zero it out. Woo! This clutch has a lot of wear. So we're looking at, I don't know if you can see that, 3¼ millimeters. That is way beyond where it needs to be. So that's worn down quite a bit. And then this one is we're looking at almost 3½ clearance. So that is also way beyond what it should be, as far as wear is concerned. So that clutch has a lot of wear. Just by looking at it from the outside, it didn't look like it had a lot of burnt material there. I won't know until I take it apart completely, but that clutch definitely has some pretty good wear. These surfaces as well, these are thrust surfaces for the clutch baskets. And we also want to check these to make sure they're not burned up or have any wear either. These actually look very healthy. They're in really fine shape. So we can reuse these baskets without issue. Customer doesn't have to worry about those. Put that over, get it out of the way. For the oil pump gear here, what we want to do is just do a good VMI of the gear teeth here, just what I call visual mechanical inspection. I'll check it again when it's clean before I install it, but I see no gear tooth damage here. So the customer got very lucky. He had spring material going around in here, but it did not hit the oil pump, so he's in good shape. The oil pump seems to turn real nice as well. So this is so far pretty good core, and everything that he wants done looks like he'll take care of all the issues so far. All right, now splitting the case can be kind of difficult on these because the dowel alignment pins here for the case, they're steel and the case is aluminum. And typically there's a corrosion issue in there that basically seizes the assembly together so you can't get it out. It's basically like a galvanic reaction. So to take these apart is a bit difficult at times. Hopefully we get lucky on this one. We have a hydraulic spreader here. Let's see if it comes apart, if we can get a nice crack out of it. Oh. Oh, look at that. We got lucky. That looks pretty good. So this thing's very convenient to have. I typically don't show videos using that. I usually try to just do it with a hammer and pry bars, just so your average person can do the same thing. But unfortunately, people love to make fun of me about that, so I'm just going to use the fancy piece of equipment on that, on this one. It doesn't spread it all the way, so we'll just give it a little bit of help here to get it past the pins. There we go. Ah, come on. There we go. Wow, it actually looks pretty clean inside. Usually they're stained pretty badly, but it looks really good. So we'll remove these pistons. After I have these pistons cleaned up, I check them. They tend to shrink and compress, and when that happens, they don't fit the bore correctly. So we do carry replacement new pistons if that's the case. Some builds automatically include them, but this build does not. But typically, if I find an issue with them, we'll just contact the customer and have them make the decision on whether they want to replace it or not. 9 times out of 10, they want to replace it. So that's about it for this piece. It's ready to go in the wash. What I'll also do is when this case is cleaned up, I'll pull these pins off, and these alignment pins, since they're corroded pretty badly, I'll take them off and I'll clean them up real good and polish them and put them back in so they slip in nice and easy. So when it comes back to assembly, the case slides right in like it's supposed to without any drama or issues. So I'm assured that it goes together properly. All right, the assembly here, let's take a look at the trash magnets. So that's got quite a bit of quite a bit of metal there. So this is not too happy. But this is the oil pump assembly. This is the pickup sump filter. So unfortunately, these sump filters cannot be accessed with the transmission together. You have to take it apart at least this far to get to this filter. So standard procedure on all of our builds, no matter what it is, even if it's just a simple repair, is we replace these filters, including the line filter on every one of them. These units are pretty sensitive to trash in the fluid, so we want to assure that we have really good filtration here. What I really like about these is they have a paper sump filter, which paper filters so much better than stainless steel mesh, which I've seen other DCTs have. So very gently pry the oil pump up out of here, just to get it out of the way so we can get to the gear cluster. All right. Now what we're looking for is your typical fork issue with these. Let's see if we can find a problem here. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, trash magnet, more spring material. You can see that. It's kind of hard to see what we're looking at here with the phone on my forehead, but yeah, so more spring material, so it's not good. Pretty happy this customer approved a damper build because obviously this unit needs it. There, come on out there. All right, so this is a 2-4 fork, the notorious 2-4 fork. This is the one that always goes bad. And fortunately on this one, this fork is actually good. Typically you can move them around because the epoxy begins to separate in here, and you can move them and pop them off. But yeah, that's very unusual. This one's good, but we sell a billet version of this, and all of our builds, from the bare basic build to the top of the line build that we offer, we include a billet upgraded version of this fork, so you never have to worry about that again. So this right here is the 6th gear fork. What I typically do is check all of them, make sure they're not loose before I wash them. There's a little bit of fork pad wear here on the brass pad that basically engages the synchro sleeve, and I'll have to fix that. So it does have excessive wear there. Just set these aside for now. All right. Pull these pistons out to get them washed. That's the drive. Set that aside. Now we do have specs on the clearance for the synchro ring to check for wear. If the synchro ring does have a lot of wear, we'll take the cluster apart and obviously replace the synchro ring. Or if we think that the synchro ring needs to be updated depending on the build, these all brass rings right here, like that you find here in 1st gear, sorry, 2nd gear. This is actually a really nice ring. They hold up really well. The steel outer ring on this one here, they're known to break here at the tabs. We see them a lot on Ford Focuses, do the same thing. They have a very similar design. So these are more problematic than the all brass ones, believe it or not. So yeah, the 2-4 section here, we'll check that with a feeler gauge and make sure that the clearance is correct. You know, the same with 6th gear on this one here. It's only one synchro on this cluster. So we'll check that later. Now we're going to take the odd cluster out. So that cluster right there, if you can see it, that's the even cluster, 246. This over here is the odd cluster, 135 and reverse. Odd cluster usually does pretty well. Sometimes we'll see smearing in 1st gear, on the 1st gear teeth. Due to somebody probably launching it a lot. That's rare with the SST, but that's one thing that I do check for. All right. I know the experts online and be like, oh, you're not supposed to pry on stuff. And I've been doing this a long time. I'm not prying anywhere that it's going to hurt it. So don't panic. Just give it a little bit of a wiggle while you pry it up. There we go. It's back. More pistons. Yeah, these 1R pistons, the biggest ones, they're the ones that usually feel pretty loose, but that one actually is not too bad. Push in with the cluster. Now on the 3.5 section here, we'll check the synchros later on, make sure they're okay. 1R section here, looks like it's all brass synchros on this one, which is really nice. So that's a nice gear set. Nice synchro set. You can see a little bit of smearing right here and here, but nothing abnormal. First gear actually looks pretty healthy. Whole gear set actually looks really nice. So doesn't look like this trans has seen too terribly much abuse. So tight. All right, 3.5 fork. These are known to get a little loose too, but the epoxy looks really good on this one as well. Not sure if you can see it on the camera, but there's quite a bit of brass fork pad wear on this one as well. So I'll have to give that one some attention later. 1R usually is the worst when it comes to pad wear, and yeah, you definitely have an issue on this one. So that'll have to be dealt with as well. So set that aside. Again, I'm just trying to give you guys a general idea of what we do here on the teardown and what we check for. So this is the center diff assembly, the infamous center diff that wears out in a very odd way. Fortunately, this one's in fine shape. They typically wear on the output splines here to the T-case. These splines here, but they're in really nice shape. So this one looks very, very good. I thought about making a replacement tube for these, but unfortunately the gear inside here is integrated to this tube, so it's a bit more complicated than it looks. So far, if anyone's needed a replacement center diff due to the spline issue, we've been able to get them. So until they become impossible to find, we're probably going to just continue to replace them with OEMs. So the splines are always really nasty because they have a lot of rust and metal from the wear on the splines that hit the area. So now we're going to check the speed sensor. These have a high failure rate as this platform ages. So I'll show you what we do to test these. We carry these in stock, by the way, if you have one that's bad. We have brand new ones in stock ready to go. Gently pull it out. All right, so we have that. All right, we'll run over to our tester here. Now these sensors, they either work or they don't. They're not sensitive to heat. They're not thermally sensitive. They're not really an issue. If they don't work, it's pretty easy to see. So, where is it here? Here we go. Plug it in. All right. So we're reading an RPM here, so that's good. Typically when they fail, it's like there's a break. I'm not sure if it's a cold solder joint or what inside the casing, where there's an intermittent contact. So what I'll do while I have it on here is I'll try to move it around. You'll see this go to 0 if there's an issue internally. And it looks really good. It's a good sensor. So it seems to be functioning properly. So it's always good to verify that, because in the past, before we made this, we would take a unit apart, do all this work to it, put it back together and test it and find that the sensor's bad, and that would just be a mess. So that's about it for teardown. I'm going to go ahead and wash all these cases, and we'll do further inspection on these parts, like synchros, the case bearings, forks. We got to go through the forks, everything, and then we'll be ready to put all this back together. But that's about it. Thanks for watching.